Good afternoon, or good morning, or good evening, everybody, whenever you're watching this video. You know, today is the fourth Sunday of the Lenten journey, Laetare Sunday, as I said at the beginning of Mass. It's the Sunday where we're getting closer to the Easter celebration, and so a sense of joy is called to build in us as we approach this feast that gives our life meaning, gives our faith meaning, the resurrection of Jesus. And you may say, well, that's nice liturgically. It's a time to be joyful and to celebrate as we get closer to Easter. But how about the fact that we may not even be able to come to church and celebrate Mass on Easter Sunday? The times that we're living in now are kind of very crazy, right? Unprecedented. And so not only the fact of we may not be able to come to celebrate Mass at Easter, but all the other things that are going on in our lives, right? The fear, the anxiety, the discomfort, how the inconvenience, all these things that are happening that we're all feeling. How can I be joyful when all this stuff is going on in my life? And that's a good question. Because if the joy that we're talking about is based on earthly things, it'll be impossible. Right? Remember Jesus said, I came to give the joy that the world cannot give. I think it's really important. Because the joy that we're celebrating is not the joy that sometimes it's an emotional feeling of, I'm just so happy, I want to skip through the tulips. But it's the joy that's a deep-rooted sense of peace that says, even in the midst of craziness of life, all is well. And why is all well, everything well? Because Jesus rose from the dead. Because Jesus gave me of His Spirit. That I become a son or a daughter of God in Christ. And that I know that the Lord walks with me every day of my life. And that when the ups and downs of the earthly journey are done, what awaits me is the glory of heaven. And so that's the joy that we celebrate today. That's the peace that the world cannot give. It's the fact that God is with us and everything else is okay. You know, the journey of life is like this, right? And our faith is really like this too. A lot of ups and downs, a lot of peaks and valleys, potholes along the way, great joys, great sorrows. The one constant thing is that the Lord is with us through it all. That's where the joy comes from. And God gives us the grace to handle anything that comes down the road, right? We can all look back in our lives and see times that we thought we would never get through something, and we did, by God's grace. And so this is no different. You know, the gospel today, the story of the man born blind, is a very important story, gospel story as we move closer to Easter season. Because it's a story of faith, of somebody coming to faith who experienced Jesus and not immediately, but little by little, came to recognize Him as the Messiah, as the Son of God. And His blindness is really representative of all humanity, the blindness of sin, the failure to see the truth, the failure to see what life really is, what is reality. And Jesus, the light of the world, comes to reveal that light, to reveal that truth. And so as the man regains his sight, the greater gift that he was given, the greater miracle that happened, was the spiritual sight that he had, was able to recognize Jesus as the Son of God. And that's that process that we all go through, even those of us who are already baptized. It's the journey of faith that little by little we can see more and more clearly who Jesus is. And we acknowledge Him and recognize Him as the Son of God. And the more we believe that, the more we're able to surrender to Him, the more we're able to trust in Him, the more we're able to be at peace. It's the great gift of faith that this man experienced Jesus and his life changed forever. But it's the process, though. And sometimes the process of recognizing the light, of removing spiritual blindness, happens when the cross is most heavy, times like this, right? How many people now maybe are praying who haven't been praying before? How many people are going to be at church tomorrow as we open the doors between 9 and 12 on Sunday to come in and just pray and sit in the Lord's presence? How many people are praying at home and reevaluating what's really important in life as they come and see clearly, more clearly, in the light of Christ, the truth of the gospel? Where else do we have to turn except to the Lord? So my brothers and sisters, as we continue our Lenten journey, as we continue to walk these days that are a bit dark, let's let the joy of the Lord fill our hearts, right? We may not feel an emotional joy or feel like really like happy or a worldly joy, but it's a deep-seated feeling of peace, of everything's going to be okay, because it will. Jesus, we trust in you.